Hi everyone, welcome back to Undefined Life. It's Tash here, and today I would like to address a really pressing question that I think is on the minds and in the hearts of a lot of people in the twin flame community at the moment, particularly the divine feminines, who perhaps are at a different stage in their embodiment and healing journey to the divine masculines, generally speaking, kind of the collective energies. And that question is whether or not we can actually move on from our twin and whether or not we can successfully find love beyond this dynamic. So this video has actually been inspired by another content creator's response to this question. And when I saw her video and I saw her response, I felt both bewildered and slightly infuriated that this kind of content is being created and these kind of ideas are being promoted in this twin flame community, because I see it often. And so this is really my counter response, or my 2 cents worth about whether or not we can actually move on from our twin. Because this other content creator was suggesting that we can't, and that once we've met our twin, that's it. They're the love of our lives. We can never move on. We'll never find love again. It's fruitless to try. And I just don't believe that's the case. However, I would like to expand on what we need to do in order for us to actually be free from the bondage of the connection, that magnetism and that pull to the connection that can often keep us feeling really stuck and trapped in the dynamic with seemingly no way out, and kind of stuck in these loops with our twin where we feel like we can't move forward with them, but we also can't move forward without them. So for me, what this really comes down to, in order for us to come to a place in our own personal journey where we are open to considering love beyond this dynamic, it really comes down to the amount of individual healing and self-work we've done. And I'm just going to touch on what this means and looks like in a bit more detail, because I think there is so much misinformation on the internet about the purpose of the twin flame connection, and that's a whole other video which I will create soon. And there's a lot of misinformation about expectations around the connection and what it should look like. And I just find that this information keeps people looping in really unhealthy and unconscious cycles in relation to their twin and the dynamic. And it seems that a lot of people are then missing the point of the connection, the deeper meaning and profound impact that this connection can have on our individual expansion and growth, because they're too locked into the paradigm or the narrative that their twin is the love of their life and that it's all going to be like a Disney story and they're just going to, swoop in and sweep you off your feet and you'll live happily ever after, being trailed by a load of bunnies and singing birds, right? Like, the reality is very different. So in order for us to unshackle ourselves from the bondage of this connection, from this incredible magnetism that we feel to our twin, which is life-changing. If you've experienced it, I'm sure you'll know that. It turns your world upside down. And when you meet them, it often will uproot a lot of your life. It will cause a lot of disturbance, and the relationship dynamic can feel so upending that it becomes your primary focus because it's, just so disruptive, and you're desperate to, either come into union with your twin or completely be rid of the relationship. But actually the purpose and point of the relationship in your experience is really for your inner growth and healing. And so this is what I want to really touch on when it comes to beginning to move on from the connection, from a place of love, by the way, not from a place of anger or bitterness or resentment or, fuck you, from a place of love and compassion and like genuine, heartfelt gratitude for the twin. In order to be able to move on, we have to utilize the relationship dynamic and utilize it as a mirror, as a reflection for what healing work and integration work needs to happen for us in order for us to come back to self-love and union within. So from direct experience, what I found is that the more inner work we do, the more that we prioritize self-love, building self-trust, self-validating, and really just beginning to meet our own needs, the less intense the pull and the connection has been to my twin. Now, I will say that the love has not dissipated at all. I still feel incredible, kind of heart-bursting amounts of love for my twin, and that love really is unconditional, irrespective of what's happened on our journey together and some of the deep shadow work that I've had to move through and a lot of the deep triggers that have come up in the connection. I'm at this place in my relationship with my twin where I hold just genuine love for this individual. But what has been key in me shifting away from this place of kind of desperation for the connection to work to actually feeling like I can open myself up to an alternative relationship, a relationship that is aligned, is the fact that I have dedicated so much of my time in the last year, especially, to cultivating deep self-connection. And that to me is the gift of the twin flame relationship, because our twin really mirrors back to us how much we are in self-love versus how much we are either self-sacrificing or actually self-abandoning in order to try and maintain the connection. And again, this is what happens potentially because of the magnetism of the connection. We're often drawn to our twin, not just from the soul level and this kind of more expansive, existential, transcendental place, but we're also drawn to them from our shadows too. So there can be a lot of trauma bonding in the twin flame connection, and that can keep the dynamic in this kind of push-pull situation. And so what I found is that the more I focus on me and less on my twin, the less intense that pull has been to him. I feel like I'm speaking to the Divine Feminine Collective in this message predominantly, because from what I've seen and sensed and observed, it's the feminines in this twin dynamic that have been doing the majority of the legwork. It's the feminines that have been doing their inner child work, their shadow work, that have been dedicated to their spiritual path, that have been dedicated to developing conscious awareness of their habits and tendencies and moving through that karmic stuff. Whereas from what I've observed, the divine masculines, generalizing, are still really anchored in a place of resistance, denial, and avoidance of their reality and of the inner work that they need to do. And so what this has led to is essentially an imbalance in the connection, because the feminines are kind of getting to this point where they're ready for conscious union in some form. And in an ideal world, if everyone was doing their inner work and everyone was on this kind of conscious path, I imagine that the best vibrational match would be the twin, and that would be the ultimate and optimal love relationship. But the reality is the masculines are just not there, not at this time anyway. At the time of filming this, it's April 2022, there is a very deep and profound shift happening in the collective, and I feel that there has been a lot of upending energy for the divine masculines. They're experiencing a tower moment collectively, I feel. So who knows what will come of that. But what I think is important to remember in relation to this subject matter of whether or not we can actually move on from this connection is remembering that everyone has free will choice. And so while our twin may be the ultimate and optimal vibrational match in terms of, you know, an incarnated love relationship match, the reality is that if the twin is in denial of the conscious path, is in denial of their soul mission, their soul work, their soul growth in this incarnation, they have free will choice to choose to stay stuck in unconscious cycles and in karmic patterns. And that is their free will choice, you know, and irrespective of how much connection and love and potential there is in the dynamic between you and your twin, we have to honor the reality. We have to honor the fact that for the most part, the feminines are way ahead on their spiritual and awakening journey than the masculines. And so where does this leave us as the more kind of conscious and awake twin when it comes to wanting to come into conscious union? Because if we believe the narrative that we are only supposed to be with our twin, and that is the only love relationship that we can truly be happy in, that's a pretty dismal and bleak story for a lot of the feminines. And I personally choose not to invest in that, because the inner work that I've done has shown me that the magnetism and the pull and the trauma bonds that actually keep you in that kind of highly dependent dynamic with your twin, that can dissipate when we do our inner work. And therefore, what happens is the intensity of the connection will begin to kind of dissipate and dissolve, but the love for the twin will remain. The unconditional love for the twin will remain. And that opens up a space in our hearts to both celebrate the connection, but also then invite in potentially a more aligned love connection. You know, you didn't come into this incarnation to be miserable and to be blasted with just heartache after heartache after heartache. You came here to do your deep inner work and then be the embodiment of spirit in form, which is expansion, joy, bliss, love. And so for me, it seems completely fruitless to buy into the narrative that we can't be happy in a love relationship outside of our twin dynamic, because the reality is we are on different timelines. Every single individual, consciously or unconsciously, is choosing their own individual timeline. And although we are at 5D and beyond, obviously deeply bonded to our twin, the reality is that in the 3D form world, we may be on very different trajectories and paths, and that's okay. To me, what's most important and what has felt most kind of pressing in my connection is that I move through the inner healing work and then I reach a state of genuine love and kind of connection with my twin without that attachment, without that desperation, without that need for him. And the beauty of that is once we release the attachment, which is rooted in need. So if we feel really deeply attached to our twin, there's an aspect of us that on some level feels we need the twin in order to be okay, in order to be safe, in order to be loved. And the reality is that that's usually rooted in childhood wounding, which our twin is simply mirroring back to us. So once we actually do that deep inner healing work, the need for the twin dissipates, the love remains. And that's a really great place to be, because it means that we're then open to all possibilities and eventualities. In, you know, best case scenario, perhaps our twins go through some really deep healing work in the coming months and years, and we all eventually come into union. But I personally don't feel that that's likely to be the case for me in my connection. I just don't think that my twin is going to be doing that level of work in this life. And from what I've observed in the collective, I don't think that a lot of the masculines are going to be able to keep pace with the level of evolution of the feminines. And so it brings us to a place of acceptance, really, where we have to accept that we have this really deep, beautiful, unprecedented connection with someone, which has essentially opened up our hearts once we do the inner healing work and opened us up to unconditional love. And then from this place, this foundation of self-love, unconditional love for another, and real deep and tangible connection to the divine, which is what the twin connection helps us access, we can then from that place call in a love match and a relationship which is both worthy of us and also in alignment with the path that we're on. Because most of the feminines are on the spiritual path. Most of the feminines are awake and conscious. And if you're anything like me, I could not be with someone that was not doing this inner healing work, because I'm only interested in a conscious relationship where we have very clear communication, where we're honest, where we, you know, operate with integrity, where we both take accountability. And what I've observed is that a lot of the masculines are just not in that place yet. And so as individuals with free will choice, we can choose the reality and the timeline that we want to tap into. So I wanted to share this because I am seeing a lot of people that feel completely hopeless about the fact that their twin is not progressing at the same rate as them. And I want to remind you that you are not defined by your twin's journey, healing, or lack thereof. Focus on your journey, your own healing, your connection to yourself, cultivating deep love with yourself, with your connection to spirit, which is you, but in the formless dimension, right? So cultivate that connection. And from that place, call in your highest love, your highest joy, your highest heart desires. And if it's your twin, if it's destined that it's your twin, it will happen. I genuinely believe that what is meant for us will not go past us. So in that sense, we don't really have to worry about the hows and the whens. We do the work and we allow divine infinite consciousness, God, source, the universe, to orchestrate the rest. So I really hope this was helpful. I will be putting out a lot more twin flame content because I'm just very passionate and deeply invested in this subject. It's been one of the most profound parts of my entire life experience in this life, and also my healing journey. And I would like to be another voice that is perhaps countering some of the more toxic representations of this dynamic on the internet. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Where are you in your twin flame dynamic and journey at the moment? Share below. If you've got any video requests, pop them in the comments. And if you're interested in working with me on a one-to-one basis, my Activate mentorship is now open. It's a 12-week container. This is a potent and powerful deep dive into the mindset, the trauma and wounding healing, the energetics, and the self-love, so that we can emerge from that container a more activated, integrated, and ultimately purposeful version of ourselves. I'm incredibly proud of this offering. The work that I'm seeing with clients is transformational. So if you're interested in utilizing this mentorship to perhaps move through your twin flame journey and come into self-love, drop me an email. I will leave my email address in the comments below so you can get in touch. So if you're not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and also the like button too if you enjoyed this video. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. So until next time, take really good care and I'll see you again soon.